My name is Darryl Kwao. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. Ghana's debt is nearing 400 billion cedis, a position that increases the tendency of default in repayment of loans. Now, economist Dr. Said Boakye is calling for an immediate halt in payment of per diems to government officials and other expenditure rationalization measures if the country is to avoid the current happenings in Lebanon and Sri Lanka. The two countries have been highly exposed to increasing debt, which has consequently led to skyrocketing prices of goods and services on a daily basis. Dr. Boakye, who is also a senior fellow at the Institute of Fiscal Studies, says authorities must find immediate solutions to the rising debt before it's too late. He joins us via Zoom. Good afternoon to you, sir. Government officials watching us right now will not be excited about this call for payment of per diems to be halted, but you say it's one of the things we must do to cut down on expenditure. Tell us more.
Sure. When it comes to the debt build-up, people have always been talking about revenue. Yes, revenue could be a problem because relative to the country peers, revenue to GDP is quite low. But then if your revenue is low, doesn't mean you have to be in fiscal troubles, in the sense that how much revenue you are bringing in, you could be managing it, you could be managing your expenditure to suit that. The problem is that the government is highly boxed in when it comes to expenditure management. You see, you add your debt service to your compensation, and you don't have anything left. Not only that you don't have anything left, in fact, you have to even borrow additional funds to supplement your revenue before you can settle compensation of employees and service your debt, pay for compensation of employees and pay for your debt. Because of that, the government is boxed in. To be able to get out of this environment, the government has to go very lean in order to be able to minimize the borrowings. After all, you cannot do anything outside these two expenditure items but to borrow. And I'm saying the economy can no more sustain the government expenditure pattern. Go to the ministries, for instance, you see fleet of cars, parked there, drivers, maintenance costs. Senior service, civil servants get free coupons. Politicians get free coupons. This thing has to come to a halt in the sense that the country is a very dire fiscal situation. Why am I calling for this? If you look at the countries of the world, Ghana is number 3 in terms of the countries that uses the biggest portion of its revenue to service its debt. Lebanon is number 1. Number 2 is Sri Lanka. And you see, people are on the street over there. It's very serious. Lebanon is having around 50% of its revenue used to pay for interest alone. Sri Lanka is also getting there. In 2018, when Ghana was number 3, Ghana was using only 33%. Now Ghana is using, according to 2021 budget outing, 47.8%, which is virtually getting to 50% of government's entire revenue and grants being used to pay for interest alone. There is amortization. If you add it, about getting to 70% of government revenue being used to service debt alone. Compensation of employees is also about 45% of revenue. What should the government do to get out of this fiscal environment or predicament? You have to go lean. The economy can no more sustain public expenditure pattern.
But we know that the government announced some cost-cutting measures some time ago in the face of a rising debt. Aren't those far-reaching enough?
I call it cosmetics. In fact, when they went to per diem, what they call pediatric launch, I thought they were looking at seriously cutting expenditure. They came and they said coupons were going to be reduced by 30%. The question is, why do you need those coupons? You have free cars, you have drivers, and the country is also giving you free coupons? Come on, you have to be serious. If you don't get serious and solve the country's fiscal difficulties, what is happening to Lebanon and Sri Lanka can come to Ghana. The case could be on the street very soon. So the government has to be serious. Labor, everybody has to be on board. You cannot use about 45% of your revenue to service your debt, whereby peer countries are using around 30% of government revenue to pay for compensation. Peer countries are using around 30% of their revenue to pay for compensation, and you are using 45% to pay for compensation, but 15 percentage points higher than your peer countries. This is way too much. Way too much. So even labor also has to sacrifice. Everybody got to sacrifice to be able to fix this country.
An example of the waste in the system, I want to pick your reaction to a report released by Imani Ghana that on the fiscal recklessness of some ministries, I should say, or MDAs. Now, it showed that between 2015 and 2020, we lost about 13.9 billion cedis as a result of irregularities within the public financial system. And the finance ministry and its subsidiaries being the worst culprit. Your reaction to that?
It's scary. In fact, it is not Imani. Imani is merely reporting what the Auditor General report is telling everybody. You see, you are always calling for more revenue, and you have imposed e-levy. Ghanaians are complaining. Of course, the government needs money, but much of the money being collected is being wasted. Getting to 14 billion within 5 years. And what has happened since the Accountant General submitted the report? Not much has happened. Heads are not rolling. The country can no more manage its fiscal account as usual anymore. Things are getting very bad. You see, and unfortunately, issues like, happenings like Russia-Ukraine war has also come in, energy prices going up. Why is Ghana inflation going up so much? Because the fiscal position is so poor, and the government is finding it difficult to support. Of course, when such a thing happened in 2008, one similar thing happened in terms of food prices, the government was able to remove taxes from imported food, rice and others, to give relief. This time around, the government even needs more money from the people because the fiscal position is so poor and dire. Okay. Look at what is happening to fuel prices at the pump. Now, 10 Ghana cedis, 11 Ghana cedis. The government is supposed to support by removing some of the taxes, but the government needs the money.
Right. And
you understand that? So the fiscal position is so poor. So I'm telling the political leaders that the expenditure pattern, the country can no more support it. The economy has reached a level we cannot support the public expenditure pattern.
My final question
and politicians have to begin with themselves first.
My final question is interesting. You bring up the situation in Sri Lanka and Lebanon. What would you say to those who think we aren't close to experiencing that? That is quite an extreme situation.
The numbers are speaking. I'm not the one saying it. Lebanon is using 50% of its revenue to pay for interest. Ghana is using 47.8%, which is also getting to 50% to pay for interest. You add amortization, and it's getting to 70%. Ghana is number 3. Lebanon, Sri Lanka, then Ghana. So I'm not the one comparing. But, we have a very vibrant private sector, and it is helping us. But the private sector cannot continue to be vibrant when the public sector is weighing down on the private sector in terms of look at inflation, what is going on, interest rate, what is happening to interest rates and others. So the government has to act. And, it is the private sector that is supporting this country, but very soon the burden will be so much, and if you are not careful, people will be on the streets.
And we want to avoid that.
The political leaders, please, you cannot run the affairs as usual. Amount of money you spend on yourself, because when the political leaders lead by example, now you can begin to talk to labor and say, look at what you have taken the initiative. Okay. We are shrinking, our expenditures. For that matter, labor, please also help. But if you continue to behave as usual, you cannot get labor to be on board. When this year was starting, they were increasing wages by around 7%. Now labor is calling for a match with inflation. Of course, definitely the government cannot do that. But okay. How do you convince workers when you are spending luxuriously?
All right. It shouldn't be business as usual. Dr. Said Boakye, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. economist and senior fellow with the Institute of Fiscal Studies.